his first business collapsed painfully. The venture, an ambitious tech startup named Innovate Forward, was his brainchild, born from late-night coding sessions and fueled by endless pots of coffee. He had poured every ounce of his savings, his time, and his passion into it. The initial buzz was electric. Investors were intrigued, the team was motivated, and the product, a revolutionary project management tool, seemed destined for greatness. They secured a modest seed round, enough to rent a small office and hire a handful of brilliant, equally hopeful engineers. For a year, the world was a blur of product development, market research, and chasing leads. He lived and breathed the company, often sleeping on a beanbag chair in the corner of the office, his dreams filled with user acquisition funnels and certain uptime percentages. He believed, with every fiber of his being, that they were on the cusp of something extraordinary. The collapse wasn't a sudden implosion but a slow, agonizing bleed. The market, it turned out, was more saturated than their initial research had suggested. A larger, well-funded competitor launched a similar product with a massive marketing budget, effectively drowning out their fledgling voice. User growth stagnated, then began to decline. The initial excitement from investors cooled into cautious skepticism, then outright concern. Meetings that were once filled with collaborative energy became tense, difficult conversations about dwindling runway and missed targets. He tried everything. He pivoted the product, slashed the budget, and he took on a crushing workload, attempting to be the CEO, lead developer, and the head of sales all at once. The pressure was immense, a physical weight that settled on his chest and he never left. His relationships frayed, his health suffered, and his once unshakable optimism began to crack. The day he had to let his team go was the worst day of his life. He gathered the small group of people who had shared his vision and his sacrifices, and with a voice thick with emotion, he told them it was over. The funds were gone. The dream was dead. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the quiet packing of personal belongings. Walking out of the empty office for the last time, turning off the lights on a space that had once held so much promise, felt like a personal and professional funeral. The failure was a public spectacle, a scar he felt everyone could see. He had not just lost his money, he had lost his identity, his confidence, and his sense of purpose. The weight of it all was crushing, a deep, hollow ache that made it hard to get out of bed in the morning. The world seemed to have shrunk down to the four walls of his apartment, a prison of his own making, where the ghosts of his ambition mocked him relentlessly. Friends and family offered well-meaning but hollow platitudes, their words unable to penetrate the thick fog of his despair. He was adrift in a sea of what-ifs and if-onlys, replaying every decision, every missed opportunity, every warning sign he had ignored. The collapse was more than a business failure. It was a profound and painful dismantling of the person he thought he was. Instead of quitting, he learned from mistakes. The initial aftermath of the collapse was a period of deep introspection and painful self-assessment. For weeks, he did little more than exist, allowing himself to feel the full, gut-wrenching weight of his failure. He didn't try to run from it or pretend it didn't happen. Instead, he confronted it head-on, dissecting every aspect of Innovate Forward's demise with the cold, detached precision of a surgeon examining a cadaver. He created a failure post-mortem, a document far more detailed and honest than any business plan he had ever written. He listed every single assumption that had proven false, every strategic misstep, every operational flaw. He realized he had been blinded by his passion for the product, a classic case of founder's bias. He had built something he thought the world needed without truly listening to what the market actually wanted. He had underestimated the importance of marketing and distribution, believing that a superior product would simply sell itself. That was his first hard lesson. A great idea is worthless without a great go-to-market strategy. He also had to confront his own leadership deficiencies. In his desperate attempt to control every variable, he had micromanaged his talented team to the point of stifling their creativity and initiative. He had been a poor communicator, shielding them from the harsh realities of their financial situation until it was too late, creating a culture of false optimism rather than one of transparent resilience. He learned that leadership wasn't about having all the answers. It was about creating an environment where the team could find the answers together. He spent his days reading books on business strategy, psychology, and finance. He reached out to other entrepreneurs, not to network for his next venture, but to listen. He asked them about their failures, their darkest moments, and the lessons they had clawed back from the wreckage. He discovered a quiet, unheralded community of people who had been where he was and had come out the other side, stronger and wiser. Their stories provided not just practical advice but also a profound sense of solidarity. He wasn't alone. Failure wasn't a life sentence. It was a tuition payment for an education he couldn't get anywhere else. He learned about financial discipline, the critical importance of a healthy cash flow, and the art of the lean startup testing, iterating, and validating ideas with minimal expenditure. He stopped seeing his failure as a personal flaw and he began to see it as a data set, at its source of invaluable information that would inform his every move going forward. This shift in perspective was monumental. It transformed his shame into a tool and his regret into a roadmap. He wasn't just recovering, he was rearming. The second business changed his life. He didn't rush into it. The idea for his second venture, ConnectSphere, grew organically from the very lessons his failure had taught him. It was a platform designed to help small businesses and the startups navigate the complex world of digital marketing, a direct answer to the problem that had sunk his first company. This time, his approach was completely different. Before writing a single line of code, he spent 6 months talking to potential customers. He conducted hundreds of interviews with small business owners, listening to their frustrations, their needs, and their budgets. He wasn't selling an idea, he was diagnosing a pain point. He built a logically simple prototype, little more than a few linked web pages, and used it to validate his core concept. He charged a nominal fee from the very first day, a crucial test to see if people were willing to pay for his solution. The first 10 paying customers felt more significant than the entire seed round for his previous company. It was tangible proof of market demand. He built the company slowly and deliberately, brick by brick. He was bootstrapped, using his own modest savings and the small stream of revenue from early customers. This financial constraint, which would have terrified his former self, became his greatest asset. It forced him to be relentlessly resourceful, to focus only on what truly mattered, and to make every dollar count. He hired his first employee not when he could afford a full-time salary, but when the workload became physically impossible for him to handle alone. He built a culture of transparency from the ground up. The company's financials were open to the entire team. They celebrated small wins and had honest, difficult conversations about challenges. He wasn't the heroic visionary at the top of a pyramid. He was a player coach in the trenches with his team. ConnectSphere grew not through explosive, venture capital-fueled blitzscaling, but through steady, organic, word-of-mouth growth. Their customers loved the product because it solved a real problem, and they loved the company because it was authentic and responsive. Years passed. The small, bootstrap project grew into a thriving, profitable company. They eventually took on a strategic investment, not out of desperation, but from a position of strength, to accelerate their already successful trajectory. The business didn't just bring him financial success far beyond what he had ever imagined. It fundamentally reshaped his understanding of work, leadership, and life. He found joy not in the pursuit of a mythical billion-dollar valuation, but in building a sustainable business that provided real value to its customers and a positive, fulfilling environment for its employees. He mentored other entrepreneurs, openly sharing the story of his first failure, turning his old wounds into a source of guidance for others. The painful collapse of his first business was no more longer a ghost that haunted him. It had become his foundation stone, the crucible in which his character and his wisdom were forged. He realized that success wasn't about avoiding failure, but about learning how to fail, how to learn, and how to rise again, not just intact, but stronger than before. The second business didn't just give him a career. It gave him a purpose, proving that sometimes, the most profound and lasting success is built upon the ashes of our most painful defeats.